What Jake had neglected to tell Everest was that the Rough Pack wasn't only staying for a single day. The Husky assisted in fixing the tower, then simply returned inside, expecting the bikers just to leave in the blizzard while she and Jake put on a movie. She was swiftly taken out of her thoughts with disbelief. As Jake emerged back inside with all three dogs in the tow, Hubcap finally returned. News that Jake proudly proclaimed while Everest rolled her eyes. Gasket flashed her a questioning look. Dwayne instantly attacked the first chew toy he saw, and Hubcap wandered off in search for food. Alright, get cozy, everyone, Jake says as he pulls his gloves off. The blizzard's coming back down, so why don't we all just lay back for the night? Everest couldn't stop the question from coming out. Are they staying for the night? What, you expect us to leave? Gasket countered, walking to her. When the temperatures are dipped below freezing? Hilarious, you should do comedy. She let out a dry laugh, pushing past the stunned Everest. They indeed needed to stay for far longer than Everest would have liked. A night with them was acceptable until morning came, and the bikers barely glanced up from their breakfast. The morning turned to noon and Everest was pushing down her agitation as Hubcap gobbled up her pup treats, and Gasket's sass followed her every move. Everest couldn't have a single conversation with the Malamute that wasn't laced with passive aggressiveness. They would have gone at sundown. She told herself that she bit her tongue. Surely Jake would have let them leave. The afternoon turned into dusk, and when the sunlight faded from the mountain, with the moon high in the sky shining above the unyielding clouds as they released their snow, the Rough Pack remained. She was at least grateful that she didn't have to share a bed with anyone. The bikers merely found a space and fell asleep on their sides, a whole day itching with annoyances and a disturbance that festered under the skin. That night Everest sat before the lit fireplace, tapping her claws on the ground as her blood silently boiled. Out of all the dogs Jake could have called to the mountain, he couldn't have at least called someone she knew. No, let this prized husky be dropped in the cage with 3 dogs that smelled of gasoline and barely knew a thing about snowboarding. In the back of her mind, she wondered if it'd be worth trying to actually become friends with them. She frowned before the fire, knowing how little friends she already had. Did her co-workers count as friends? It was a gray area she never really got accustomed to. Sure, a co-worker would be a friend, but only within a work setting. Outside of it, they barely paid one another any mind or even thought of them. Who truly were her friends? The Paw Patrol was worthy of such titles, but little did they ever give Everest much attention. That said, there was one dog within them she always had looked forward to seeing again, the Avitation Pup, the cockapoo who took the sky. Perhaps it was their love for the outdoors that only drew them together, or maybe the twinge of loneliness from being the only girls in the male-dominant groups. Or maybe it could have been just Sky's outgoing personality that broke the ice of Everest's introverted nature. Either way, they found each other, and they were an unstoppable pair whenever they found themselves together on missions. She caught herself thinking about Sky a lot, her friends invading her thoughts often in moments of loneliness. Even with their friendship, they rarely talked, only brief reconnections from time to time. They saw each other, lowering their head and letting out a long sigh. Everest was willing to give anything if it meant for Sky could be here instead of the foul biker gang. Jake was busy the next morning, his eyes too fixated on his handheld devices to notice the tense breakfast scene. The urge to strangle someone was incredible as Everest watched Hubcap messily gobbled up his meal. The blood boiling under his skin was making it difficult to pull the poker face. Any more strenuous effort in vain would probably pop. Gasket could see the whole thing unfolding, watching the husky in amusement. Everest? Jake walked in, holding his tablet. There's news. The husky immediately whipped around, elated as she was finally getting his attention. What's, A violent choking sound cut off her sentence as Everest had blithely forgotten there was food in her mouth. Flattening her ears, she gripped her own neck and started hacking up the cough in her throat. Much to the silent disgust of the other animals at the table, she coughed up a chunk of food that gingerly chewed it before swallowing. Dazed by the event, she let herself breathe for a second before gingerly looking up at her owner with an apologetic smile. Jake had his arms on his sides, staring at the dog. "Are you okay?" "Ice or snow, I'm ready to go," the husky said with a weary smile, desperate to be useful again. "Oh, okay," he said her befuddled owner, looking up at her and down for a moment before turning back to his tablet. "Remember the other night when you went out to that outpost?" The color drained from Everest's face. Yeah?" Her heartbeat quickened, uncertainty climbing her back. "Remember how the signal randomly shut off by the time you made it there?" "Did it do that?" The husky nodded. "I thought it was weird because there wasn't much there," she hesitated. "Nothing that really answered any of my questions." "Well, when that tablet you uncovered finally finished decrypting, maybe you'll get some new information," her owner said absently. "It's not done?" Everest exclaimed, astonished at the time that was taking to repair the machine. "I thought it would be finished by now." "That thing was really busted, Everest. I only had so much hardware to work with. I literally had to fix several pieces of it before I even plugged it into my computer, and that alone was not an easy thing to do. But the point is, the signal from the outpost suddenly turned on again, like at around 10 minutes ago." "It did?" The dog tilted her head, an easy vibe beginning to surround the breakfast table. "You mean someone went back to it?" The rest of the animals all raised their heads from their food. Their attention now was Jake with piqued curiosity. "Turning to one of those things on didn't take a few flip of the switch," Jake explained, his face twisted in bewilderment at that scenario. "There is a whole process. That means whoever did this has an extensive knowledge of how to work one, and that is why my highest priority now, I want to know who that is." He pointed at the table, quickly counting up the dogs before him. He grimaced, wincing at the fact he was about to propose. "I need someone to go back out there." "The outpost?" Hubcap said, narrowing his eyes. "Isn't that where she got hurt?" He pointed at the meaty paw at Everest. "It was." The husky followed his statement, happy to finally agree with him on something, but still, she wasn't going to fully relieve the details, even if Gasket knew. She turned back to her owner with a confused expression. "You saw what happened to me there. Why on earth would you be sending me back if I attacked you?" "I didn't say I was sending you." Jake waved her off, then paused, looking down at his dog. His expression turned into confusion. "Wait, you never said you were attacked." He quickly put it together in his head. "You said you fell on glass. Why are you saying you got attacked?" Gasket barely suppressed a chuckle as Everest turned white under her fur. "Well, Everest stiffened, her eyes widening as she realized her mistake. "I mean, it felt like I was attacked, I assure you. I absolutely fell on glass. You could have put me on the lie detector for that. I probably, Her paws fidgeted nervously on the chair. "I probably ran into a couple of tables or something, you know." She ended her speech of lies with a dry chuckle, praying that Jake would believe her. It was difficult to tell with the confused expression he was wearing. "Okay then," he muttered, having lost his train of thought. "Well, I wasn't sending you, not after what happened to you back there. I was actually sending one for the rough pack." Hubcap raised an eyebrow at him. "You're sending us out there in the snow location to where it's explicitly stated that dogs get hurt there?" he said flatly. "It's because we're stronger, Hubcap," Gasket smirked, sneaking a glance at Everest. The husky immediately returned the gesture with a hostile glare. If Sky had been there, she would have raced to defend her at the moment the bullying started. Snapping his fingers at the two, Jake was quick to shut down their quips. "Hey, enough. We all work together here, but Everest is in no condition to go out there again." Jumping onto the table, Gasket proudly puffed out her chest. "Send me. I'm not afraid of shadows or bigger shadows." "Yeah, send her." Hubcap barely glanced in her direction. "If it means I don't have to hear her for the next few hours." Dwayne leaned into the conversation, sporting a wide smile and a wagging tail. "Can I come in? I can do something. I can be helpful." He put his paws on the table, pieces of scrambled eggs dripping from his muzzle. Pulling an annoyed expression, Gasket looked at him sharply. Dwayne, where does snow come from? The Great Dane was taken aback, puzzled at her question. He squinted, trying to find an answer. When a Mommy Snow and Daddy Snow love each other very much. That's why you're not coming. You're an idiot. Hey, I can be smart, Dwayne huffed, tapping his paws. I just need to learn how. My proven thus proven, Gasket said, looking back at Jake with a smirk. You're going out the superior animal here. Send me out to the outpost. Groaning into his hand, Jake was visibly exhausted from the bickering. Ending the song and dance was more motivation to move on with the actual mission at stake. Alright, fine, Gasket's going. Everyone shut up now. Please, let's us all eat our breakfast and be friends, okay? He held out his arms at the four, pleading for harmony. Jesus, you'd think talking dogs would be this advanced enough as species to get along with one another. He pointed at Gasket. You Malamute, follow me. I'll get you set up with your gear. If Sky had been there, Everest is secretly fought in her head. She'd have him shut them all up in seconds. She blinked at Gasket's tail, whipping at her face, the biker walking off with Jake for a mission briefing. At least the jerk would be gone for most of the day, she sighed in defeat as she returned to her eggs. The following night was a lonely night. Gasket hadn't returned yet from her mission out in the snow. Jake's work had been relatively light. Everest lay awake in her bed, idly staring at the home screen of her tablet. She finally had some time and a whole room to herself, yet she didn't have the slightest clue of what to play. Her eyes flickered across to each game she had, mentally dismissing each one as she saw fit. She already played that one, the one that she mastered, and only barely interested her anymore. Too easy or too boring. Without realizing she had already swept her entire game library. Overwhelmed with a feeling of longing, Everest picked up her tablet and accessed it to call function. Just one call, one talk with the Paw Patrol would be enough to ease her worries. It would certainly be better than trying to talk to Chase on a discontinued machine. Picking up the device in her mouth, she crept out of the room with gentle steps. She just had to get somewhere quiet. Out of concentration, mostly. Maybe she could finally have private conversation. Her paws were muffled on the blue-worn carpet, as the case for the other dog walking behind her. Evening, Dwayne spoke, shattering the silence with his voice. Gah! Everest jumped, her heart skipping over itself. What are you... Furiously turning around, she faced him with bare teeth. What the hell is wrong with you? Don't sneak up on me like that. The Great Dane flinched back, a flash of fear on his face. I was just saying hi. You can't just sneak up on someone like that, especially not in the middle of the night. I know, Dwayne began to shrink. I know, I'm sorry, Do you want me to slap you? No, the biker's tail went under his legs, taking a step back. I just want to apologize. For what? He nervously knelt to the ground, hanging his head with an uncomfortable expression. About what happened at breakfast. Gasket and all, she's just a jerk. I would feel a lot better if the apology actually came from her, Everest grumbled, trying to lick her fur back down. What is she telling you to say all this? No, the biker shook his head. I just felt bad. Scoffing slightly, Everest leered at him with a sour expression. Well, thanks for your concern, but I'm fine. Can you please leave me alone now? Right, sure. Dwayne's tail slowly began to wag again. He stood up and turned away, but not before looking over his shoulder. If it makes you feel any better, I don't think it's anything personal. She's just always like that. His words fell on deaf ears, as Everest had already swiftly led down the hallway. Realizing she was gone, Dwayne stood alone for a few seconds and frowned. Sighing to himself, he quickly walked back to his bed. Pushing open the door to the unused back room, she was met with the stench of cold carpet and hardwood floor. A mess of unused ski equipment was tossed in the corner, doomed to gather dust until someone gave the time to fix the imperfections. At least now she had some privacy, letting the tablet fall from her mouth to the floor. Sitting down and making herself comfortable, she accessed the call function and pulled up the screen of contacts. She didn't talk many over the phone too often, usually because it required having groups of friends in the first place. Sky was the first contact Everest called, tapping her name on the screen. The tablet buzzed as the life as it sent the call. Everest sitting patiently as the glow of the screen illuminated her frown. Silence and incompetence as she sat alone, surrounded by her own thoughts and mind. The line eventually went dead, something Everest wasn't too surprised about. The call was missed or lightly declined entirely, much to the husky's disappointment. She's probably busy, she shrugged off, the crippling loneliness as she scrolled through the other contacts. Perhaps Chase could talk again, she told herself upon seeing his name. Maybe she could get some answers about what's happening in Adventure Bay. She called Chase and waited, tapping her foot on the floor impatiently. Seconds went by, agitation bristling in her fur as she stared at the tablet. The call suddenly declined, coming to an abrupt end as Everest sat in surprise. It hadn't been ignored or missed. Chase had actually declined the call. What? She muttered, feeling hurt and confusion showed in her mind. Why did... Fine. None of the other Paw Patrol members were picking up either, each one going to voicemail and sinking her heart further. At first she was angry and annoyed, demanding an understanding of why no one wanted to talk to her. By the next call it turned out to be desperation, a hollow feeling growing in her chest as she silently pleaded to hear someone's voice. The last contact was a dog named Zuma, a chocolate Labrador who had worked as a Coast Guard. She didn't talk to him often or really had any interaction at all with him, so Everest was expecting another dead end. Figuring she'd let go at least all 6, the husky lowered her ears as she apathetically tapped Zuma's name. The rain on the tablet was lost on her. Her eyes wandered up on the frost-covered window as at the wall, gazing through the layer of snow, her mind aimlessly drifted into the unknown. Her thoughts were filled with uncertainty, echoing static clouding in her head with the unknown. A feeling of hopelessness began to slowly arise. A voice came through the tablet. Hello? Huh? Everest tapped through her thoughts, looking down at her device. Hello? I already said hello, the voice said absently. Who is this? Zuma? Yes, that's me. Who is this? It suddenly clicked in her head. Everest quickly recollected herself, realizing the call was actually answered. Zuma, hi! Sorry She laughed nervously. It's Everest. Sorry, I didn't think you'd actually answer me. Zuma's voice came through again, completely devoid of any joy or excitement. Everest, this isn't really a good time. Right, I understand, the husky said quickly. I know you guys are busy. Can you tell Sky I called? The Labrador went quiet for several seconds, almost making Everest wonder if he hung up. Yeah, I can, he hesitated, voice sounding uncomfortable. I can tell her you called. The dissonance in his voice was drawing her concern. Is everything okay down there? We're fine, Everest, but some things have happened, Zuma said, grimacing at his words. A lot of things happened. Big things. Things that weren't really sure what to do about. Look, it may be a while until we hear from me again. There's just a lot going down there. Concern flashed over Everest's face, leaning closer on the screen a little. Well then, I can talk to Sky? If you guys are going away, at least I want to know then. No, Zuma cut her off almost immediately. Sky, he winced. You just can't right now. Why, is she okay? Goodbye, Everest, Zuma growled, sounding like he was about to end the call. Wait, no, she almost barked. Just tell me, I can help. Whatever is going on, I can help, Zuma. Please, just tell me what's going on. She completely stood up and staring down at the tablet as desperation flooded in her voice. I never get to anything to do around here. No one ever lets me. A thought came over her head, flicking her eyes to the side for a moment before she tried a little something. Just like how no one ever lets you do anything, right? Zuma went quiet. I never see you out there on the missions with the rest of them. She pressed the subject. It's always the same dogs. I've almost never seen you, Zuma. How often do you actually get picked to help them? No response. Everest grew concerned as she wondered if this was crossing the line. I, to an extent, understand you in a way. Do you ever feel alone? I know I do. She hung her head slightly. Even with these new dogs here, I don't know any of them. I just want to talk to Sky, the one friend I have over there. And if she's going away for a mission or something, I'd really like to know why. Her words trailed off, an audible sigh leaving her. So can you please tell me what's going on? She sat alone in silence for what felt like hours, until Zuma finally spoke up. Everest, you probably should sit down. The husky cocked her head, then lowered herself back down to the ground. Okay, I'm sitting. A feeling was beginning to climb her, a hollow, sinking feeling. Everest, Zuma could be heard, talking in a shaky breath, great agony bleeding from his words. Sky is dead. It was then Everest froze, her mind sorting out his words echoed within her, body going still. Everest stared forward as she completely stiffened. She could barely speak in disbelief. You're joking. I really wish I was, the lab muttered in defeated tone, his voice drained of hope. She's dead. Chase shot her in the lookout roughly half an hour ago. Every memory Everest had shared with her dear friend flashed through her head in an instant. Confusion froze her step, disbelief slipping from her. What? Why? Why did he? She sputtered, her voice cracking. Tears filled her eyes and anguish screamed in her mind, an overwhelming sense of panic fogging her thoughts. What are you talking about? Why did he shoot her? Why would he? Zuma snapped, barking into his microphone. I don't know, okay? His voice broke for the faintest sound, quickened breaths, leaving the dog as if she was forcing back tears. Something is really wrong with Chase. There's a military organization called the ACG that's been starting shit around town, and Chase just revealed that he was working for them under our noses. I can't trust him anymore. I won't trust him. An icy tone dripped off his tongue, fiery vengeance emanating from the lab's voice. He keeps ranting about some parasite, some creature I don't know. Everything was fine just a little while ago. Then it wasn't. We're all locked in our kennels right now. It's where he told us to stay. A thriving knot twisted in Everest's gut, her knees buckling as her body collapsed. Her stomach acid threatened to fill up her throat as she stared into the ground. Not a single thought could iterate itself in her mind. She's static, juggling between disbelief and rancid urge to vomit. Well, we're not entirely locked in here, Zuma said again. I'm about to go take a walk in the rain. I just need to think about some things. In the meantime, Everest, I suggest you stay away from Adventure Bay, at least for a while. I don't understand what's going on anymore. All I know is that Chase is unstable and he needs to be dealt with. A growl emitted from his throat. Maybe this may be the last time we talk for a while. Take care, Everest. As quick as Zuma's voice had appeared, it was gone. The call ended. The light of the tablet dying shrouded this husky in darkness. Her paws went limp at her sides, tear-filled eyes aimlessly staring ahead at nothing. Memories of Sky's laughter circled her, taunting her weakness as they echoed in her ears. Then one by one, each memory slowly faded away, until there was nothing left of her best friend to support her. Aimlessly she stood up again, and hollowed her expression, staring at the floor as she began to walk back to her room. The ski resort slowly faded into the color around her, dissolving into white noise that echoed in her blank thoughts. Quickened breaths emitted from her muzzle as wet streams formed down her cheeks and dripped onto the floor. A hollow fog, laced with grief, surrounded her as she lifelessly passed the stairway. Approaching the banister that overlooked the lower floor of the lounge, Everest found herself unable to walk anymore. Slowly sitting down, she stared ahead with heavy tears at the blank wall. Nothing could come to her mind but the lingering fog of static. Someone had come through the front door, and Everest could hear the old wooden door open into the blizzard, then quickly shut. Slightly turning her head, she looked down at the entrance through the bars of the railing. It was Gasket, standing on the entrance mat covered in a sheet of frost. She had returned from her mission. It seemed it, but Everest couldn't care less anymore. Gasket stood like a statue, her eyes scanning the area without moving her head. Her vision then clocked forward, and silently her paws moved one another. Everest watched the biker listlessly walk, her movements fixated without a flaw, crossing the cafeteria until she vanished from view. There was nothing she could give for the night. Everest stood up again and returned to her room, completely oblivious to the unfathomable horror that had just invaded the ski lounge.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video. And I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.